Looks like we're there.
All right. I want to call the Board of Directors study session for November 24th to order. Jim, go ahead.
Okay, first on the study session, I have budget for 2021 and your October financials together in there. There's a budget message with it. There was a few changes with our workman's comp. We had, what was it, about $300 in water, or 13, no, it was about 1,300 in water that we were short from our estimation of what it was, but no, it wasn't.
No, once we put in the increase in tap fees,
Yeah.
We were over. So a lot of that absorbed the increase in the workman's comp in water and sewer.
So that's where we're at with that. Should be final. If anybody needs a copy, they can come to the office here and look at it. We did have a problem. Mr. Cook found a mistake that I had done in my posting of the public hearing. I talked to the lawyers today. She said that it would be fine if I posted it now, because with our deadline being the 15th, we still wouldn't be able to do it within the 30 days, but we can still go with it on the 8th. If there is some problems, we can reschedule a meeting for the 14th if we need to adopt it, if there is problems with any of the issues with it. It was my mistake. It's been done this way, I guess, for the last, I don't know how many years. That on the posting, I forgot some language as to saying that we can pick up a budget here if needed to, if somebody wanted it or asked for it. And it is also posted with the announcement on our webpage. So if you look under the public meeting for budget and budget amendments, that will have the budget for next year posted with that posting. I did talk to the paper, and we got that fixed in the paper, so it should be in the paper next week, and then updated the board outside. So
actually, it'll be in the paper tomorrow morning.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Ted. So we're all set still for the 8th, unless somebody can find something that in the budget that they need to have us look at or review to if they find a problem. But like I said, I think we're at the final on that.
All right. Any questions for Jim on the budget or the October financials?
I do have one question. So when you reposted it then, did you explain what happened?
Did I explain what happened? No, I didn't. I did put the post, and I figured I'd explain it here that this is what happened, and I will get this out on Facebook and stuff to say that it will be changed. It was changed today.
Okay, and going forward then, we will know to post it on the
Unless you guys want to have a meeting on December 24th.
No, but
No.
we can't for the 15th anyway, for the budget.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, we gotta get it done.
Okay, next one. I kind of put all of these together since there was a bunch in this book, in this part of the meeting. I have quotes for the Rangers. If you notice from the original quotes, they dropped almost $700 off of the quote for us. They went lower on it. I'm looking at, for the water department, 2 Ford Rangers. We also had our compressors go down in our water plant. One of the reasons they're saying is that it was due to the chemicals and stuff, so we're looking at putting the new compressors within its own storage, so they'll be breathing clean air and not deteriorating our compressors. All the information is there. We're looking at 48,390 for the trucks, $39,120 for the two compressors, and with our shed and cement and all the hookups and stuff, it's going to be 23,000. Right now, we were looking at probably being in the budget about 180,000 over. This is one of those areas where I'm still wanting to keep money going in it, and we still have depreciation and stuff that we'll be adding to it. So that's what I'm looking at for the water department. If you turn and go to the next, which reminds me, there is also, Donnie I gave you some sheets on a leak detection equipment. The equipment that he found and looked up, and it's going to run $3,695. I believe that's what Neil and Bob had talked about for finding it. Finding using leak detection from surface at this point. I'd like to try and order it this year too, to get it within this overage and go forward so that we can start this, because hopefully then we can get it started in January. They'll have enough experience with the equipment to go forward and start finding some of the situations that we're looking for. Okay. All right, then you had a sheet here. Yvonne did break down the meters that were put in from April into May. She went through and looked at different variables, different things, because we don't have really accurate numbers. The data on it isn't going to be precise because in 2019, you didn't have water restrictions this year. You had water restrictions. You have drought situation, all of that. But if you looked at the final number on it, just for the 1 month of where she pulled the consistent meters and stuff, it came out to be about a 17%, but that's just on 1 month. And that's only a lot of about 200 meters. So, and we're trying to figure out how we can go forward with it for the next set of meters and that kind of stuff to get an accurate where we're at. But like I said, it's going to probably take us a year to really figure out exactly where I can use 2019 and maybe next year as a comparison compared to using 220, which has been a lovely year, you know, between COVID and drought and everything else. Okay, so that was some of the figures that you guys asked for last time.
So, a question.
Sure.
Through these, is there any way to tell the date of the meters monitored, how old they are?
They haven't been marking as to what were old ones, when you know when that last meter was changed out. So we could probably go through in our Casal and find when meters were changed out or
how old the meter is.
But it would have to go back and look through it.
So would we be able to have a
history,
have a report like this, for example, that would be of meters that were over 10 years old or over 20 years old?
It would be extremely difficult. I think the numbers you're seeing here based on the install dates of the meters. I don't know exactly what Yvonne's criteria was for pulling these, but based on the looking at the install dates, this is phase 1 meters that are, this would be Corona Verde, looks like mostly, which would be unit 1, the majority of unit 1. And historically, Corona Verde, outside of probably 65 residences, is mid-90s, would be kind of the latest outside of new construction, obviously in the last 10 years. But This is probably your 8 to 12-year-old meters.
8 to 12. Mid-90s are
Karen has,
Right.
We didn't put the install date in Casella whenever we transferred it over because information from our old system would not transfer to Casella, so they put it all in manually. We told them that was not something we had to have, but looking at the old meter reading books that I have looked at for the last 12 years, they did a meter replacement in 1996. Past that, it was just a here and there kind of thing, so you could say probably 80% of Colorado City was 1996, was the old meters.
96 are old.
And 96 are newer, pretty much, unless you get to the big ones like some of the school, the hotel, the apartments, those are older. Those are way older, those are original. But the majority of the meters were 96 to 2000.
So could we,
on this drawing.
On everything, the whole entire city, unless it was built before then, that's when they put the meter in. Like mine had failed, so they had to replace it, but in general, you could go down a street and say this street was in 96, this was May of 96, another street, this was June of 96. And I can pull the old meter books, but they're down in the basement.
yeah,
And
okay.
that would be the only place that has the original install date of the old meters, if that's what I'm understanding you want.
Right, and it's not worth going through a big effort to get those.
Yeah,
That would be more informational than anything else.
I do have a spreadsheet, and Dottie has seen it also, that I have a spreadsheet that gives you the age of the old ones. It's not 100% accurate.
Yeah, oh, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, going on, sewer department, like we've been discussing, trying to get rid of the smell, what it would take. This one, we looked at a truck on it and trailer for it. You're looking at diesel truck was 38, and I haven't found the right trailer, but we're looking at a 9,000 or less. So that's why I just put it as 9, and we go from there. Right now,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak a moment if I could.
You may.
I want to go with both number 1 and number 2, the purchase of trucks. Water department purchase and sewer department purchase. I would like to know how we're going to handle allocation, because if we purchase specifically to the enterprise, the unit has to stay in enterprise, or it has to be allocated. So that means if you use it in the other one's got to pay its time and usage back. So how are we going to handle this if you purchase them within enterprise?
and that's what we're looking at is with the trucks. The diesel would be strictly used for this of hauling your biosolids and that. So it would basically stay in the sewer department. The Rangers are for water, that they are our runaround trucks to between Cold Springs and the main water plant and down to the sewer plant for the computer down there. Because our SCADA runs out of the sewer plants, but it runs our water and sewer plants. That's our home for it.
So you're saying that these trucks will not be used out of department?
They are designed for these departments.
I know that's what the plan is, but what I'm saying, if you get a call out, then we have to allocate.
Yeah, we know that.
How do you plan to handle the allocation? Are you going to handle it on mileage or percentage? How do you plan to handle the allocation?
Probably on mileage, because that's why we're dedicating them for the water plant and dedicating this one for the sewer plant.
Can we be assured that they will log the mileage on other runs?
We can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, the next area, I know there's a lot on this list. This was just a lot of Josh things that he was looking at. It's kind of by priority. except for like the tree removal. We are looking at getting him a truck. He does not have a truck for that department at all, and I feel that it's one of those places where he needs one. His was just a half-ton club cab that he can use to haul his mowers around. He has a new trailer for his mowers. I think that would be it. The roof on the rec center needs repair. It was claimed but never fixed. So this is a repair of $5,000 to repair the roof on the rec center. The hot water heater has been giving him troubles in the campground. We are looking at, and with the cold weather, he's afraid the furnace, it's about ready to go out too. So he's looking at replacing the hot water heater with a instant or on-demand one, and also the furnace at the same time, because right now when he gets a lot of calls that they ran out of hot water at the campground. Where this way he won't have a tank that somebody drains and somebody else hops in and they drain it again. So, or they have to wait for hot water. So that's why we were looking at a on-demand hot water heater. As for the mower, he says we can go without it, but he'd like to finish his fleet and get it completed up to, and that way he'd be done with mowers for at least five years. There's a ball field drag that he is looking at, and he found one fairly cheap that would work and do what he needs done, which would save him time and labor on all of that. The rest of the stuff, he had refrigerators at the pool. He went, plugged them in one day, and one of them just blew up. It shorted out. So we're looking at 2 refrigerators for the pool. I thought it was for one for the ballpark, but he said no, they'd be both for the pool. He would like to remove the trees around the pool on the east side. That's where he has the most problem with the leaves going into the kiddie pool, and it's a lot of cleanup in the springtime to get it ready to go. That would save him a lot in that aspect.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to speak.
Go ahead.
I saw your one bid on the tree removal. Why aren't there bids from other companies?
This was the lowest one that we ran across when we advertised it, or he went out looking for bids.
I saw no others. I'm asking, where are the others?
I don't know. I'll have to get with Josh and have him give me the other ones.
Thank you.
So, Jim, he did take multiple bids on all these
As
items.
far as I know, yes. Josh usually gets multiple bids on anything he does.
Okay.
Well, I would like verification that we got bids.
Okay. You can do that. Now going on, like I said, there's also what we were looking at, park and rec fee changes. Open swim would go from $3 to $4. 12 punch passes from 30 to 40, and swim lessons from 35 to 40. Campground, we have added a couple more 50 amp sites, going from $30 to $40 on that. We have checked prices within KOA, and we are still cheaper, and even other campgrounds up in Ryan stuff. I know we discussed that last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we got a question in the audience.
Go ahead.
Why did most of your newer RVs run 100 amp? Why aren't we just going to upgrade? Why aren't we upgrading to 100 amp instead of pricing it off at 50?
Well, I think if we go into opening up more campsites, we will look at that, because right now with what our service is coming in to our present campsites, that we're at that point where we're limited. Whereas if we put in a new pole, which is on part of this bid, that we can move that, put in a bigger box to go 100 amp.
It seems to be more cost effective to put in a 100 amp service or 200 amp service and to break it off at 100, and then at 50, and then have to come back 2 years. Most all of your newer RVs that I'm aware of are being supplied with 100 amp services. So I don't know why we would break it off at 50. It's just curious.
Well, I think when our new section comes in, because we're looking at pulling another line in to the campground to upgrade the other side of it, and we'll discuss that and see if we can do that.
Yeah, because, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
You may.
touching on Bill's point, the power line extension here, is it coming off of our current, or is it coming off of? Oh, I hate this echo.
Yeah, bad.
Hang on.
Okay.
Jim, if you mute, the echo
So-
should go away.
Yeah, I think that took care of it. So anyway, this extension, is it coming off of our current? Is the reason why they're not upgrading, to Bill's point, because it's coming off of our current and they don't want to change all that wire size?
Right now, yes.
Or is it coming off of new, or is it coming off of, the power pole into a new section? Or do we know?
We haven't put in the new power pole for the new section. The present one that we do have, the breaker box and stuff, is not big enough to handle.
And we're
100
extending
amps.
off of it.
No, we're going to add in a new power pole to bring in bigger service.
So the new one would be 100 amp or
Yes,
200 amp service.
we can go that way. as
It
we go
should
through.
be, because if they're gonna lay new, I agree with Bill 100%. If they're gonna lay new, now if they're gonna extend off the old, then obviously we gotta replace all that wiring, more than likely.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Yes,
You may.
I have never heard of 100 amp service. I have researched it because somebody, I think it was Bob, asked me about it before. Basically, your 50 amp service is 2 legs of 50 amp. Your newer campers that have the 2 air conditioners will pull off of each leg. I cannot find anything anywhere about 100 amp service. Basically, if you run it in 240, then you're getting 100 amps. Each leg is 50 amps. So that's what we have put in the campground.
so you're bringing in 2 legs of 50 amps.
Yes. And that's still considered 50 amp service.
So Josh, are those,
Maybe there's something I'm missing, but I cannot find any information on 100 amp service anywhere. And I have a 39-foot 2019 fifth wheel that's 50 amp service. I've never seen anything bigger than that.
Neil, you had a question?
yes, Josh, a question for you. The 50 amp services that you talked about, can they be 220?
You'd have to use a different type plug.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a plug like that, anything different than a 50 amp plug for a camper.
Okay, thank you.
Check on RV travel.
Okay, we'll
Can you
look
hear me
in.
now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Harry.
Okay, I have 2 different adapters for our camper trailers, and one was for 30 amp and one was 50 amp. And sometimes you go to sites, they have it set up for a 50 amp, so all you have to do is change the adjustment on your attachment to hit the one that's set in there if you don't have the other one. But 50 amp is the highest I've ever seen from anybody. And I think he's right. You have 250s, that equals your 100 to run those big rigs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, going on. Golf course, clubhouse. I got price. I'm still waiting on 2 other prices. The first price came in at the 3,300 square foot replacing all the carpet with vinyl flooring. It's a wood plank, kind of a lighter but not dark. It's mixture. It would be $27,000 to replace all the flooring in it because that carpet is stained, ripped, torn, and I figure if we have the money, we might as well invest it into our place. I also went up and looked at the swamp coolers on them. They're rusting out. They're just a regular swamp cooler from a house. I was looking at putting in commercial grade swamp coolers that have the plastic pans in them and all of that. That would be $7,600 for two of them. They would be the longevity of them is 4 times as long as what you get from regular residential. That was one of the bids that I pulled in for them. At this point, we were looking at the golf course with about 110 to 120, wasn't it? Or we didn't take the depreciation.
We didn't take out depreciation. We're more like
90.
with my year-end forecast.
Yeah.
We're about at 79,000.
79. And what we're looking at is also doing a 30 split with the maintenance shop, so that way he gets new reels, he has equipment on the shelf, so as things break, fertilizer for most of next year, having it on the shelf, so that way we're way ahead of the game, and we're not looking at how are we going to do this in April. I told him I don't want to see him until April. So this is one of the things that we're looking at spending out. I kind of want an idea as to, yes, we can go this way, so I can set up some resolutions and set up our budget amendments and put it in this year. We talked to Sam, the auditor. He says, as long as I have it in resolutions that the money was appropriated out of this year, it will not come out of next year's budget. Whereas if it isn't here, then it will come out of next year's budget. I have to have the stuff here with COVID and everything else that is going on. I don't know whether I can get all the work or the trucks. I know I won't be able to get them until probably February. So that's where we're at with that. And that's why I'm asking if we can use this money and appropriate it towards this year's budget, since we have a overage. And that's kind of how I work, guys, is I try and scrimp and save all year long, so that way at the end of the year we can go forward and buy stuff that's going to put us 6 months ahead. Whereas the last 2 years, it's been April and May, and we've been holding off and holding off and holding off until we received either tax money or whatever, so that we can go forward. I like to have that cushion of having parts on the shelf, fertilizer on the shelf, whatever it would take, and being in a position that, hey, we have the equipment here, let's put it to work, let's go forward.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
basically, Jim, you covered number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Does anybody have any additional questions on
Mr. Chairman,
any of those? Yes.
I'd like to speak on number 5 there. Again, there is no multiple bids. There's just one local bid. That's it. There's no verification of shopping, making sure we're getting the best price possible.
And like I said, I'm waiting for the other two, Bob, right now. They came and looked at it last Thursday. And I haven't talked to Phil since then as to whether they had turned in bids yet or not.
So that could be added to next agenda. That could be added to the December 8th meeting then, that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll have more solid figures as to it, but this is just going kind of in the middle of the road figures, except for your trucks. The trucks, they were a definite Yeah, they were the definite numbers on that.
All right, any other questions on those 4 items?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, you want 27,610
Yeah,
for the flooring in the clubhouse, and we're going to do 3,300 square foot.
yes,
So if my calculations come up correct here, that's $8.37 a square foot.
yes.
So this vinyl flooring, commercial vinyl flooring, awesome stuff, by the way. I just had it put in my house, and my kids so far have not been able to tear it up. But that stuff, good quality stuff, costs you about $3 a square foot. So we're going to pay the installer $5 a square foot, and that stuff is the easiest stuff on the planet to install.
Well, he's tearing out all the carpet, hauling it off, all of that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm waiting for the other two to come in.
Please, let's
Yeah.
make sure we get some good bids, because that's way too high.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry, but that's way too high.
Greg, that also includes the demo and removal of all the old stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about ripping out carpet here. We're not talking about rocket science.
Some of it's glued down.
Their carpet's glued down. I don't know if you've ever dealt with.
No, I have dealt with glued down carpet. That can be a pain in the rear.
Yeah.
But
As contracting goes, typically the price for that typically would be about the same price as the material you put back in. So that's not uncommon at all to be kind of a 50-50.
well, that's not 50-50 though. That's considerably, that's almost 3 times. Because a good quality commercial grade vinyl, you can go get at Lowe's, and this is the high end, you can get for about $3 a square foot. And that's commercial grade, lifetime warranty. High end stuff. And we're talking almost $9 a square foot here for demo and install. So almost.
Well, maybe you're not looking at this sheet. The 14,110 is for the LVP, and then the 13,500 is for the tear-out installation. There you go.
I just bought tons of flooring, and it's not that expensive, and it's not difficult to install. I understand going with commercial grade, but I'm saying we need to shop this a lot closer here.
Yeah, we need more bids.
Yeah, we need more bids. Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Okay, everybody got that section?
Yep, go ahead and
Let's
move on to number 6.
Okay, next, I have, resolution 18/2020. That is the 3 roads that we will be, putting in. Donnie, you want to elaborate a little on that? These were expedited roads.
Yeah, so we have, out of the 3 roads, we have 2 of the roads are expedited and 1 of them is not. So that's just a difference of which ones we're getting, a little money back on. But these 3 roads are what I need the resolution from us adopting them in order to update the county, Dominga there with the county roads and bridges, to put that on their map, so it equals our map. But this is more procedural than anything.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Donnie on that. It's strictly procedural. We have to keep the maps up to date and who takes care of what section of the road, because if there's any question, you can always call either office and they know who's in control of the road, whether there be an accident or maintenance issue.
All right, any other questions on proposed resolution 18/2020?
And each one of the roads is, if you look at it, is about 500 foot.
Okay.
For additions. Okay,
Right.
next you have resolution 16/2020. If you notice on the heading, I changed the wording as requested, authorizing district manager and/or manager's designee to enforce. I haven't heard anybody else say anything else that they needed changed or added to. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on this.
Okay.
We do need to edit. I found one problem. if you look at this, it's hard to explain without document in front of me and everything, but we have the whereas.
Yeah.
At the last whereas, the board finds that it in its best interest, the owners and residents in Metropolitan or the district authorize the district manager and or designee to issue a stop work order if the manager or designee determines. Well, that's the problem right there.
Okay.
That second line there, if the manager determines, not the manager or designee, only the manager determines that. The designee is only for delivery.
Okay. So the second designee authorizes the district manager to issue.
It authorizes the district manager and or designee to issue is fine. Then the next line says if the manager or designee determines, only the manager determines, because if we scroll down to the actual resolution section, the first paragraph, it says the CCMD manager is hereby authorized to issue a stop work order for any property. So only the manager determines whether or not it is.
Okay.
Or I should say, issues the permit. He can have it delivered by the designee, but only the manager makes that decision.
Okay. Yep.
So strike or designee.
Yeah. Down at the
Sounds
bottom,
good.
the second one.
The second one here.
Right here. This in here.
Oh, down
Or
here.
just strike the words or designee.
Yeah. So
That's
Yes,
to authorize the district manager and then just strike or designee.
No. Then go on one more sentence, Greg.
Says within the district to authorize the district manager and or designee to issue stop work order.
Be that one.
Yeah, strike
Okay,
the,
no.
strike the or
You keep
designee.
going. If the manager or designee determines.
Oh, okay.
So it's the second one there.
So the
It's a
second
third
one's the
First
one
one is
you want.
fine. The first one is fine with designee. It's the second one, if the manager or designee determines. Only the manager determines.
Okay.
So strike or designee at if the manager or designee, strike or designee.
Gotcha.
On the third line.
On the third line, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
If the manager or designee determines that the owner is proceeding, we're just going to strike or designee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. Only the manager makes that decision.
Any other questions or comments? Number 8, Jim.
Okay, I sent out all the letters, the top 11 letters of our complaints, and I had multiple calls. I told them that, yeah, it needed to be in the side yard, behind the fence, approved by the CCAC to continue to carry that dumpster. There was a few of them that they were asking for variances, whatever. I said I have no right in allowing any kind of a variance or anything. It would be up to the board. I invited them to come into the meeting here as a study session if they want to voice their concerns or their complaints on it as to how we can deal with the issue.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on that.
You may.
The manager is correct in telling them to speak to the board, but I remind the board that the board does not have the power of variance.
All right. Is anyone, I'm of course blind as far as the audience. Is anyone here to discuss that issue? Greg, can you act as my eyes?
Yeah, I'll let you know. So far,
Yes.
nobody's been asking.
Well, I have.
Yes, I
Miss-
would like to say something.
Oh, okay. We
All
got
right,
somebody on
Zoom.
on
Yeah.
You
Zoom.
want to
I'm-
introduce yourself, ma'am?
Yes, sir. My name is Nancy Slade, and I am a member of an LLC that owns the property at 3032 Lunar. And we received one of those letters, and I appreciate that your concern with the covenants is to keep our neighborhoods looking sharp and property values up, and I do want to commend you for that. We do have a circumstance with our tenant and his employment that makes it very difficult for us to comply. I would like to introduce John Bell, our tenant, to explain that situation so that we can see what our solutions are.
All right.
John Bell is also on via Zoom.
And it's John Bell, correct? B-E-L-L?
John, that's correct.
Yes, sir.
John Bell.
All right, John, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I'm a contractor, and also we are remodeling our house here at 3032 Lunar Drive. We've done everything possible. We got up 3 of the buckets, and every week we were just overfilling them with the trash coming from the remodel of the house and from my job as a contractor. So we've talked with Mountain Disposal. We're aware that it's right on the road. That's not where I wanted it. I tried to get them to move it up closer to the house. They wouldn't because of the slush and the snow during the winter, which is understandable. We've done everything that we could to try to get around this, and I really don't know what else to do. We can't put it in our yard. It won't fit inside our house. And again, with the remodel of the house here, we're throwing away. It's full every 2 weeks, minimally. Once a month they dump it. Most of the time, every 2 weeks. So I've got a lot of trash with the remodel and with my job.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
You may.
Mr. Bell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're talking about a remodel. How long do you expect the remodel to last?
It's hard to say because I'm doing as I can. My house with and with my job, especially coming into the winter, is going to speed up here a lot. But as far as being completely done with the remodel here, I'm looking at probably about a year because the house it was in really, really bad shape when we moved in. We've made a lot of good progress with it, but it's also, we've got a lot to do still.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've discussed this matter in the past, not maybe this specific property, but because this is a process, I think the board is willing to give some leeway, but a year's out of line. We generally offer, okay, if you're working with us, let's look at it in 30 days. But we generally don't go much more than that, because we do understand remodels and new constructions happen. And during that, because it takes us 30 days to do something anyhow, we generally say, okay, let's revisit this in 30 days. And I wouldn't mind revisiting it in 30 days, but we cannot continue down that road beyond much more than that. Some of them may take 2 months. That's a given there. But if we saw somebody that was actually working with us in a reasonable time frame instead of just as we can, I don't see how we can work beyond 1 to 2 months in a situation like this, where they have no time frame to actually complete a job. Because if you pull a permit to build a house, you have a 6-month build frame just for the permit. Under certain circumstances, it could be extended to a year, but it's extremely rare that you get that. Most new construction is less.
May I speak to that a second?
Mr. Chairman, after Harry, I would love to address that one.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
when we remodeled our house, I had 3 big dumpsters like that there because it took me eight months to remodel our house. And I think when you're building like that, I think 3-4 months could be acceptable. But my question would be, once he's done remodeling a lot, he has his own private business, and I'm wondering how big a dumpster he needs for the private business and where is he going to put it. And because if he's still in a private business, he's going to need something to dump it with, and that doesn't take care of our issue with the dumpster on a long-term basis.
Mr. Collins. Thanks, Harry.
Yes, okay, first of all, almost all the houses are going past 6 months. Mine almost went past a year. So that's not an extreme rare circumstances that it goes past 6 months. Second of all, I used to be, this house that John is living in used to be the house next to mine. And I can tell you that when the people that previously owned it left it, it should have been condemned and burnt to the ground. It was horrible. John has done the community a favor by moving in there, gutting the place, and remodeling it, because it was absolutely horrible. You can take some of the worst houses in Colorado City, and I'm not even sure if they could have gotten close to what that place was inside. So the fact that he thinks it might take him another year to finish remodeling while he continues to work full time, I don't think is a unreasonable amount of time. However, I do feel like I would like to hear what their solution is after they're done remodeling. As far as I would not want to see that dumpster there on a permanent basis after they're done remodeling. I yield the floor.
Anybody else with comments?
That was good. That was good.
Nancy,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to continue on that if possible.
just a moment. Let me ask a question first, and then I'll yield to you. Nancy, I missed the relationship here. You own... you introduced...
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yes. My husband and myself are members of the LLC that own the property that he is living in and remodeling.
Okay.
But the nature of our relationship is that his rental contract includes the fix up and the remodel. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but the gentleman who described the condition of the home, it is absolutely as he described it. It was horrific. And before Mr. Bell and his family could even move into it, there was significant, like 3 large dumpsters full before we could even start gutting walls and replacing pump plumbing, etc. So it is exactly how he described it. It has a lot of work still to do, and Mr. Bell is doing all of that work as part of his rental contract with us, all the while trying to support his family with his contracting business.
Thank you, Nancy. Bob, was it you who had an additional comment?
Yes, I agree with Greg that some of these are taking a long time, but a lot of the time is not necessarily on-ground work or dumpster-wise needed. So there is instances where it does take a year, but not necessarily the needed for the dumpster for the year. And then I'd like to refer to the property I control in Applewood that requires a dumpster from time to time. And if it's livable, I don't need the dumpster all the time. And I've made arrangements so that when I am in need of it, I can have it brought in, but not leave it there. And if you notice on the sheet, that particular address is no longer, didn't get a letter because the dumpster was removed, because currently it's not in a phase where it's being generated trash every day. When we get to more of the remodeling, we would probably bring it back in for 30 days and then send it out. And it's going to be a work in progress, as this gentleman's doing. And that's what I'm getting at. It can be a work in progress. Send the dumpster away when it's not needed.
True.
May I speak to something?
Yes, Harry, you may.
I think that's a good conversation. I think what Mr. Bell needs to do, since he's in construction there, while he's doing all the tearing up and things, I don't have a problem at all with dumpsters being there temporarily for a month or something for building. But I think maybe he has a little time to look at this, because I think he could kill two birds with one stone. If when his house is all tore up right now outside, he could maybe make a place on the side of his house or somewhere behind a little wall or something or fence where he can put a dumpster that he can use for his construction that's behind something, and then when that's a smaller dumpster, of course, and then when he's just in his business and living there, that can open it up and they can get that dumpster out and he can win-win with two things. And that would follow the covenants too for that particular situation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Harry on this. It is absolutely acceptable to put a small fence up or something, even if it's a fence for a year, to meet covenant and use it appropriately and then make changes later on.
I'm not talking about the big dumpster. I'm just talking about when he's done with
I agree. I agree.
Okay.
So,
On the same page.
Mr. Bell, did you have any other comments? This part of the meeting is a work session. So if I'm hearing the members of the board right, we are definitely willing to work with you. But any action that we would take would be later, either in this meeting or a continuance to give you some time to think about what we've said. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? So we're sure to have all the facts as we proceed later in the meeting with the covenant issues.
Yes, sir. I've been thinking about this. Ms. Nancy brought it to my attention the other day. And I would be willing to bring gravel in if it would be acceptable for me to build a really nice picket fence to keep the dumpster behind. I would be more than willing, and I thank you all for hearing me out on this. I want to be in compliance. I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place because I do generate a lot of trash, but on the same hand, I really don't know what to do. And if that would be okay to build a really nice picket fence. I have fence on two sides of me anyway. Well, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm all ears.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak to Mr. Bell.
Yes, sir.
I would be willing to go and visit with him and touch on it because I think the board's willing to work within our constraints and his. When we set this up, we had talked about covenants and sometimes needing to work with the different property owners. And what he's describing seems reasonable, but because I can't see it at this time, I'm not familiar with the property as Mr. Collins is, but I am somewhat familiar with the covenants. I think what he's proposing is a very workable solution, and I would like to meet with the gentleman.
Because as per the covenants, Bob, it says it has to be in a side yard behind a barrier. That is approved by CCAC.
Correct.
So.
And I think he said he had a side yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not seeing an issue yet.
Yeah.
So is it all right with the rest of the board if Bob meets with the gentleman, realizing that Bob is 1/5 of the voting members of the board? Mr. Bell, you should realize that too. But yes, Bob does have a lot of knowledge of the covenants. Is anyone opposed to Bob meeting with Mr. Bell?
No.
And give a report back as to what is this possible solution.
Then it comes to the board.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bob, if that works for you, and Mr. Bell, are you okay with that?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right.
Now,
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, this is Nancy again, if you don't mind.
Oh, Nancy, go ahead.
So in the notice, it asked us to kindly fix the violation within 15 days. Because we're discussing this and we're troubleshooting what we can do, can I assume that this 15 days has been remedied and we're working on a solution?
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
ma'am.
may I?
You may.
I think we would probably be tabling this for the next meeting, if you're understanding where our discussion is going.
Yep, I do.
Yes, and yeah, that would give Bob and Mr. Bell and you, if you would like to be involved, Nancy, time to meet. Mr. Bell, if you don't mind, I know this is a public forum. Can you tell Bob how you would like to get in touch? How you would like him to get in touch with you? Do you
Mr.
mind?
Chairman, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, the manager has my phone number. He's welcome to give it to him.
Okay. All right, we'll do that off air, Mr. Bell.
Yes.
If you would just contact Jim and he can give you Bob's number and you guys can set up the time.
Okay.
When is the next meeting for when it's going to be addressed again?
And
The second Tuesday of December.
and may I,
You may.
Mr. Chairman, understand that it may get delayed at that meeting as well. It's the discussion that matters at this point.
Correct. Is everyone okay with that decision? Can we move on?
I concur.
You have another question there with their hand up. Seafair. Terry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't notice you. I apologize.
Yes, sir. My name is Chad Fear. I represent the property owner there at Applewood in 2920 space 26. And my concern about the letter that we received is there is no side yard for this particular property. The owner wants to comply as much as possible, but in this particular property, the front yard and the base for the house is elevated about 3 feet above, 3.5 feet above the ground. And the tenants that live there are elderly. There's a very small easement to the back of the property, but they would be unable to move a tote or anything else to the front of the yard. So we are really struggling with how to comply with the request, understanding that there is not a side yard.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would be willing to meet with them and discuss it as well, so that this 15-day does not worry them until we can talk with everybody and see what we can work with each person.
Again, is the rest of the board okay with that?
I concur.
Yeah,
I
I'm
concur.
fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Yeah.
Ellis.
Mr. Ellis has a question.
All right.
Are we talking about unit 20? Applewood, I don't believe requires it to be in the side yard. It requires it to be in an enclosed structure.
Oh, I gotta look at that.
We talked about it the other day.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Mr. Fear, I'll advise you the same way we did Mr. Bell. If you would just give Jim a call at the Metro office, he can get you Bob's number. Does that sound agreeable to you to meet and kind of figure out what we can work out?
It does. It is space 26.
Okay. Yes.
Unit 20, space
Mr.
26.
Ellis was raising a question about Unit 20 as to the exact reading of the covenants. Yes, our goal, as somebody said earlier, and is to clean up Colorado City, and we're definitely open to figuring out the best way to do that for everybody involved. So thank you, Bob, for offering your time. And if Mr. Bell and Mr. Fear will contact Jim, you will get Bob's phone number so you can set up a time.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
You may.
Because I don't have notes on this, would somebody make a note during the CCACC section to mark these two properties as under review by the board, and we'll vote on it at that time?
Absolutely. All right, last one, Jim, number 9.
Number 9, I have Applewood. We have the playground equipment for Applewood. I went back and I found the resolution, which was in 2017, resolution supporting the grant application for a local parks and outdoor recreation grant. At that time, I guess Mr. Valdez had said that he was going to put a park in Applewood. I don't see anywhere other than it was, if they got the grant, that they would put it there. As talking to Callie, the AP person, there was never any GOCO grant turned over for it. The park, the equipment was bought out of CTF funds that the district gets, like we talked about last couple of meetings. CTF funds is from the Colorado lottery, and we get so much a year. It's usually around 14,000 that we end up getting from Colorado lottery. That's CTF funds. So I know it's been kind of a misunderstanding that, yeah, this was for Applewood, which that's fine. If we want to put it in Applewood, that is fine. I have no issues with any of it. I just wanted to get down to where it came from and what we actually got money for, which if we would have had a GOCO grant, it would have had to be there. That's where it was lined out to be. But since it was bought with CTF funds, that is the community funds that is sent out, it's up to the board as to where we want to go.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
You may.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out to the manager that this board, not the previous boards, has instructed that this be done twice now. We have instructed and we voted twice to get this done. The last time we did, it was to be done by October. October has come and gone. It doesn't matter where the funds came from. We do have the equipment. I've been told many times the equipment was purchased. So the equipment's there. And it doesn't matter if where else it was promised. This board, in its current configuration, with the exception of Neil on the first vote, approved it, and with the complete board as it sits now, has approved it again, and it's still not done. This needs to move forward under this board. No more of this old board stuff.
I've never received to put it in Applewood.
May I speak to that?
You may, Harry.
When I look at this minutes, and I don't know why we didn't get the COCO grant. I don't know that, but what do we know what it's going to cost to put in the right base? Because those piers have to be cemented in the playground, and they have this new technology now for safe stuff for kids. Back in our old day when you teeter totters and all that stuff, we killed ourselves. We can't do that anymore. But I don't know what the cost would be. We don't even have any bids out for a cost of putting in a base and what would it take to get it kid safe. I mean, do you use the new rubberized stuff, or do we use
pea gravel?
Well, gravel. I think gravel right now is if you look at a lot of playgrounds, they don't even use gravel anymore. But I think I kind of agree with Bob in that situation. We need to do something, but we have money in the budget, Jim, to do this.
Mr. Chairman, it's not a budget issue. This is CTF funds.
We have money in CTF too.
It still has to come out of somewhere.
We have money in CTF that is set aside up to, I think, about 40,000. Or what was it, Yvonne?
Well, I mean, when we first talked about this, we paid about 30,000 for the equipment, and at that time, 15,000 for the install, which was an in-house install.
So we're gonna do an install, and we still have the 15 grand set
Yes.
aside for us to install it ourselves.
So if we can get the material as what is required and all of that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may.
So I would love to see this park installed. And I would be the first vote here, well, probably the second, because I think Bob would be the first, to get it installed immediately. Since we've got the money to do an in-house install. I mean, I understand manpower is lacking right now, so once again, we're gonna have to work around the schedule of the city. But who is going to be responsible for maintaining this equipment, keeping this area clean? Is this something that Parks and Rec is going to do?
Yes.
Is this something that we're going to have community volunteers doing? What have we addressed this situation? And I do have somebody here in the audience, Mr. Chairman, that would like to talk after I'm done.
All right.
And I yield the floor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have a.
Okay.
I would like to speak a bit about that as well. Do we have any real good data as to how much that playground will be used?
Two hands.
The gentleman in the audience still wants to speak.
Mr. Bennett would like to speak.
On that first question, yes, there are 4 kids that live on the end of Applewood and Blue Spruce. There's Sherry's kids. There are 5 kids right across from the proposed park. On that cul-de-sac right there is another family full of kids. And then there's Jenny's kids on the other side of the green belt. Easily 10, 15 kids that would be there messing around. These are kids that play in the street and skate in the street. They, it's probably not going to stop them from skating, but they play in the street a lot. They have a basketball hoop set up right there on Blue Spruce and Applewood Court. And that's where they play basketball in the street.
Did they set up the basketball?
What's that?
They set up. It's their basketball court.
Yeah, one of those ones from Walmart.
Okay. So that's good information.
And just to put your mind at ease, I would have to say that so the families that are in this area, I think there's a lot more single families in this area. There's a lot more kids in this area that I think would benefit from having a playground in the area. The only thing coming from that area or living close to it, the only thing that I would want to see in place, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that the playground gets taken care of, gets cleaned up and gets taken care of. And once again, Mr. Bennett,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bennett would like to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, that was something that was, when you proposed this park, that was something that they said was part of the budget. As far as cleaning it up, they'd have a guy out there emptying trash and whatnot. That was supposed to be part of the deal.
Who was going to take care of it?
The Metro here, Parks and Rec, takes care of that. I mean, how much could it be? How big is this playground? I mean, how much could it be? 1 trash can, 2 trash cans?
Can I speak when he's through?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Ellis would like to speak.
Go ahead.
This is, kind of been convoluted over the whole thing, the way this came down. It came down to the kids playing in the street. One of them almost getting hit. This is about 3 or 4 years ago now. And the fact that the district is not protecting their properties. There are 2 lots that right there that the district owns that people use access to go into that greenbelt and create havoc back there with all the trash and all the stuff that's back there. One of the things that would be done was you're going to put a barrier across your lots, the district lots. When I talked to David, was going to be made into a parking area. There would be no more access for vehicles back into that area. Now, it will be cheaper for the district to go empty a trash can once every other day or whatever than it would be to get all of the trash out of there, which they, was it 4 years ago, they brought in dumpsters and they brought in some, the sheriff brought in some prisoners, they cleaned the whole place up. And at that time, I stated that's not gonna work because you're not changing the attitude or the availability for people to create a trashy area. You're not putting any controls in. It's now worse than it was then. So the cleanup issue is still gonna be CCNB's problem. It is their problem at this point. That you own the green belt, you need to go look at it and see how much trash is back there, how many junk cars and everything else is back in that area. And it'd be very easy to build the barriers, stop the traffic that goes back there. You own the lots. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
Another question, and I think amongst the audience as well, is we have 5 people in the audience from the community. And I don't know, honestly, folks, I don't know where you all live. So my question also would be, do the people in Applewood, all the people in Applewood, want a playground?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
I get emails and this stuff from about 6 families constantly asking me to push it.
But the emails you get, is that a pretty good representative of the population of
The ones that
Applewood?
have children, yes. And the main point is, you can do that and try to make it. This community was designed back in the 60s, so each of these units had their own little playground area and everything else.
Right. Oh, I understand that.
That was part of what they were going to do. They were going to start with Applewood. They were going to start redeveloping that situation and putting these smaller playgrounds, keep the kids out of the street, and all of the various different units. That got lost in transition somewhere. I'm sure it was the fact that they were money-wise and so forth, but that was the discussion that went down.
Right. But we
David met with all the people from Apple, and they formed their things, and then the district come along and said, no, we can't have a volunteer thing because we don't want the liability.
So we are
now,
where
you
we are
have
now.
volunteer groups, but not that. You didn't want that.
Mr. Bennett, what were you going to say?
Not this board. Don't say it about this board.
No.
This man right here has asked for volunteers since I got elected. So please don't say this board.
Well, the impression's out there, when I say this board, you're part of that board, whether it's goes
Well,
on from way back when.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I've asked for volunteers from this community since I got elected, since before I got
Let's get back on
elected.
focus here.
Mr. Bennett, what were you going to say?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Neil.
Mr. Bennett had a question, response.
Okay,
What
go
does it
ahead.
matter if they want it or not? You guys promised it to be built there in a special meeting where you passed out flyers only to Applewood residencies. Pretty much forced it on us. I was here. I said, build a walking track at the lake, like the Riverwalk. No, we have to build it at Applewood. So who cares if they want it or not? You got the spot where you're gonna build it. There will be kids. I promise you that. I promise you that there will be kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Before we move on to the meeting, I have a question, sir. I'm not at the meeting tonight because of the health situations. How many people are at the meeting right now, and how many are wearing masks?
There's 5 people at the meeting. They don't really, I mean, they're all social distance, but there's 3 of them wearing masks right now.
Because they are
But
within,
they are right next to each other, but the other 2 are social
Because,
distance.
I mean, I'm serious about this because I didn't come because I didn't want to address, I put my family at risk for health reasons, and I'm a board member. And I think if we have a sign outside that says we must wear masks, and that's a closed facility, that's not safe in there.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. That mask does not fit everybody. As you know, I carry a medical exemption. And I would be at that meeting tonight if I wasn't bedridden from another injury.
But you could wear a shield. That's my point. We could wear a shield.
I don't have to.
I'll drop it right now. I'm done. But I will not come to a meeting until we have it under control, vaccine-wise.
Okay, hold it.
Not wearing masks.
we're social distance.
I know.
Okay.
Hold it. Okay, Jim,
I understand that.
Anything else about the playground equipment in Applewood?
One of the things that I like to do is I like to meet with Bill and visualize his idea, get some estimates on what it's going to be for pheasancing, get with Josh, have Josh, I know, has researched what kind of base and stuff we'll need, and we can go forward with that. I can come back with a bid as to what it would cost with us doing it. And do you want a basketball court put in with it too, or just the playground?
Okay, Bill, are you open to meeting with Jim?
I'm willing to work with Jim at any time.
Very good. I think that's a good
Chairman. If you want.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that to me?
Yes, Bob. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Is there a possibility he could meet with Mr. Bennett as well because he lives in the area?
Sure. That's what I was going to say, if Mr. Bennett wants to.
Very good. All right. Anything else as far as work study session?
I have Mr. Fleming here. I don't know. Did you have?
We do about the water.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to put it.
Well, because I don't have anything on the agenda, or I didn't know you guys were coming in.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, okay.
Just a minute, Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
If the Flemings are there, I would like to hear from them because I have seen some documents, and I would like an update on that situation.
Do you want it now or citizens' input, Mr. Chairman?
Now, this is strictly a study session.
Now it's fine with me.
Okay.
That way the Flemings have a choice how long they want to stay.
Okay.
Go right ahead, sir.
Pat Fleming here. Okay, I got a document here for research some more. Everybody can take a copy here. And then here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, here's some extras for the other board members too. Okay, Sherry Fleming, my wife, she's researched this a lot. She'd like to touch base with you gentlemen in reference to the water issue. Thank you.
Okay, what you have in front of you is a letter that I'll probably just read.
Excuse me just a minute. Ma'am,
Come a little bit closer.
Would you mind standing just in front of Greg there so I can see also, if you don't mind?
Can you see me now?
Just a little bit
A
over.
little bit over?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
I need some
Might get the mask off so we can.
It's easier for me to hear too.
There you go.
Okay, the first part is a letter that I'll probably just read. And then you have the quitclaim deed that Jim Eckert gave us a copy of. And then you have a warranty deed that I researched and found. The quitclaim deed is dated September 30th, 1982, and it states, Colorado City Development Company sold all remaining surface water rights in Mountain Shadow Estates to Colorado City Metro District. With the words all remaining, it would imply that Colorado City Development Company did not have ownership of all surface water rights in Mountain Shadows Estates on this date. If you go to the warranty deed, it is dated August 6, 1979, and it states Colorado City Development Company sold lots 10 and 12, which is where me and Mr. Gutierrez, which is out of town and couldn't be here tonight, we both live in Mountain Shadow Estates, to Howard and Norma Amarine with all its appurtenances, which can include surface water rights per our attorney. In talking to our water rights attorney, she acknowledged Colorado state records on ownership of surface water rights are, quote, vague, and many times show no definitive owner. When ownership is unclear, it can, and many times, is determined by intent at the time of the transaction. While we do not know intent from a transaction 40 years ago, we can determine how each party understood the transaction by their actions taken later. When Howard Amrine sold lots 10 and 12, some 20 plus years later, he sold them with surface water rights. One could surmise that his understanding of the 1979 transaction was that surface water rights were included in the sale, therefore transferred those water rights to the buyers of lots 10 and 12. Looking at the quitclaim deed, again the wording, all remaining surface water rights, implies Colorado City Development Company no longer owned all surface water rights. And one could further surmise that the surface water rights were indeed sold to Howard Amrine along with lots 10 and 12. We know that Howard Amrine used the surface water rights enough for those rights not to be declared abandoned by the state of Colorado. If Colorado City Development Company and then Colorado City Metro District did retain ownership of surface water rights of lots 10 and 12, Howard Amrine would have had to lease the water from those said entities. No water lease was mentioned in the warranty deed, and surely in the course of 20 plus years, a lease agreement signed by Howard could be found in the records at Colorado City Metro District office, either hard copy or digital. That same lease agreement would have been readily available when we started using the water rights in 2008. However, we did not receive a lease agreement until 2017, 9 years later. If no records can be found and Howard was not leasing water from Colorado City Metro, why should we? Our mistake was not knowing enough about water rights and putting our trust in Colorado City Metro District, thinking the per year charge was water right fees and how water rights were handled. You had every right to question the legality of leasing service water rights. However, it is not now, nor has it ever been, our responsibility to determine whether Colorado City Metro District has legal rights in the handling of any Colorado City Metro District's business, nor our financial obligation. Along with lease charges of water rights for 12 years, now questionable, we have incurred legal fees, kept to a minimum by using our time and effort to research water rights, and the loss of income and or increased expenses this past summer as to Colorado City Metro District's legal issues to lease water. We will continue to use the water rights in accordance with the original decree, exactly as we have for the past 12 years, with the exception of paying a lease charge to Colorado City Metro District. If you can provide legal, definitive proof of ownership of surface water rights for lots 10 and 12 in Mountain Shadow Estates or a Colorado State Water Court judgment, we will cease using the water. Until then, we will trust that Howard Amrine knew what rights he had when he sold lots 10 and 12 to us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions? Jim, where are we at as far as research on our end?
On our end, like I said, we got it to what she has of the decree that was in 1962,
1982.
Or 1982. So I don't know whether Richard even knows of this one in 1979 that it was there. So I could send it to Richard, our water attorney, and see what there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak, please?
Comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Hold
folks.
on. Hang on, Greg had
Mr. Chairman, can I speak, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Greg.
That's all right. This technology don't always work the way it's supposed to. So, I don't know, I mean, I'm just one board member, but I don't want to spend legal money on this stuff. This isn't even water we can use as a community, I don't believe. I think we've been told by Donnie that we can't even use this water. So I don't want to spend any money or anything else. I mean, if the research that these people have done and the money we've already spent with the water attorney hasn't proved.
That's what we've spent so far with the.
Holy cow, Batman. I mean, come on, guys. This water isn't even important to us because we can't get it to our lake. If we could get it to our lake, then this would be a different story. But this is just my opinion. But let's please stop spending money. The whole reason why I didn't want to sign a lease with these people to begin with is because we didn't know if we had the legal right. And I believe we made that decision as a board that we didn't know if we had the legal right to lease the water.
Correct.
So we still don't really know if we have the legal right. So I'm not saying that we just I'm not saying that we give up any type of stuff here. I'm just saying let's stop spending money on attorney fees here for water that we can't even use. I yield the floor.
Other thoughts?
I would like to speak on that.
Go ahead.
I agree with most of what Greg said, not all of it. That's normal. The way I understand what Mr. Collins is saying is we don't use the water, we can't use the water. However, I'm with him and not wanting to spend much in attorney fees, but I don't want to give up water rights because even if we're not using it over in the lake, we have the right to lease it for augmentation rights. And I think there's another document in the background that Mr. Collins may not be aware of in a situation like that. They don't necessarily use the water. You're using the augmentation rights to the water, even though the water is flowing on down and growing grass. So I don't want to see us give up rights, but on the other hand, I don't want to waste an undue amount of legal fees either.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm not saying give up anything. I'm just saying we stop pursuing this. There's no reason to pursue this. There's no reason for us to give up anything either because we don't even know if we own the rights or have the right to give it up. But right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the number. So right now we spent $10,627
through this process
to make a silly lawyer rich. Okay, and we've gotten nothing for it for the community. So I'm sorry, but this is insane. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, sir. Yes, Neil.
Would we be able to come to an agreement to, without giving up any kind of rights that we may have, could we come to an agreement to just let you use the water rights?
My thing is we own the water rights.
Well,
Why should we be paying
So
you?
we paid you for 12 years.
And you've done
For
nothing.
what?
and I'm not, I wouldn't
For
dispute
what?
who owns the water rights, but could we make an agreement to, because we don't want to pursue it anymore, we would like to have you be able to use the water.
As long as you don't charge us and leave us alone.
Could we make an agreement to not pursue it any further, to not give up any kind of water rights we may own?
Hold on.
That allow you to move.
You're gonna have to pursue, and basically what I know is the next step for all of us is the water court.
Right. And that's expensive.
And that's expensive,
None of
and
us want to do that.
all we
However,
wanna do
we're
is
not
irrigate our fields, feed our horses,
and
relatively cheap.
use what we're entitled to. We've
And
been
we'll
paying
just
you guys
let you
for
take the money we've already given you for really no reason.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
You may.
I'll have to direct it to the Flemings. I cannot see or anybody, I can barely hear them, but how much of the water are you claiming on the ditch?
Whatever the water rights told us we could have.
That's what I'm asking. What are you claiming in the amount of water?
It varies every year.
and also
On the
determining on what the water
snowmelt.
commissioner deems usable.
And the snow
because they're
melt.
the ones that control the amount of water being used.
So you guys get a certain percentage. I'm not real high on water rights.
It's
but
in
you
the
get a certain
original
percentage.
decree.
And
Above.
that's what
How many gallons per minute and such like that.
Yes. So you guys get a certain
Yes,
percentage.
yes,
Once it
and
reaches a certain height,
and
then
that-
you get a certain percentage over that, correct?
Yes.
That's usually how it works, Bob.
And we've been doing that for 12 years with no issues.
I think we ought to just drop it without giving up anything we may own.
That's all I'm asking.
I don't.
That's all I'm
We're not giving up anything, and
Right.
it's probably gonna be a fight in the future.
And
And on the drought years too, to be honest with you, water's.
And that's again up to the water commissioner, not up to us, not up to the board, it's the water commissioner who determines
And the
that.
documentation on the form that we use for how much we use, Mr. Also Gutierrez uses, we balance the whole week of what we use.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing is adequate for us to make, kind of no decision will be our decision.
that's, would be my suggestion,
Fine, works for us.
Thank
We
you.
will,
is no decision would be a great decision.
thank you.
And folks, thank you so much for all the work you did on this. I appreciate it.
With COVID, we really didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Everything was.
I know.
I researched it with the clerk and recorders, I mean, stacks of books this thick of records, so thanks to COVID,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank you, board.
Yeah.
All right, let's close the study session. Immediately reopen the regular meeting. I call that to order at 7:31. Greg, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir, I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. For those of you who would be so inclined, please join me for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Let the minutes reflect that 2 board members are present in the room, 2 board members are on Zoom, 1 board member is on the telephone. All 5 members are involved in the meeting. First thing I need is an approval of the agenda.
I have on CCAC, there was brought to my attention that the Metro District needed an application for our shed at the water plant, and I figured it would be a courtesy application to the architectural committee as for what we are doing with our compressor.
Add that
Okay,
to the,
is that addressed on there, Jim?
I didn't put it on the agenda because it was just brought to my attention today.
Okay. All right. What is the address there?
Oh, shoot, I just have a,
5600 Corona Verde Boulevard.
okay.
All right. Thanks, Donnie. So add that to the reviews. Any other changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes, sir.
like to touch on the actions that myself and Neil will work on under old business.
All right.
Thank you.
How do you want to title that, Bob? Just
Loss prevention and infrastructure repair.
okay. Loss prevention, infrastructure repair. Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? And that will be under old business.
Correct.
Okay. If no other changes, I need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
and I'll
I
second
have
it.
a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think on this we can just go all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes and for the regular meeting and study session of November 4th. Could I get a motion for that, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes as due to the statement that they're not verbatim.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the study session and regular meeting of November 4th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any financial or operational information, Jim?
No, you're in the second meeting.
All right. Would one of you guys sitting there by that drawer there in the middle read the statement of conduct, please?
I don't know if we have anybody.
I was going to say, there's nobody really in here. We want to just tell everybody be nice and go on.
Okay. Tell them boxing gloves after the meeting if they act up.
Yes.
All right. Any no citizen input, I'm assuming then?
No, they've all left.
Okay. Agenda items.
Okay, I have agenda items, water department expenditures. Like I said, we're looking at 2 trucks, the compressor moving forward. The compressor is operational, that it needs to be put in to go forward. Since both of our compressors went out in the plant, we're in the process of making the proper repairs.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion on agenda items, water department, sewer department, parks and rec department, golf course department, to approve pending multiple documentations of bids.
All right, I have a motion on the floor
to approve all 4 of these.
The expenditures for water department, sewer department, parks and rec, and golf course, subject to additional bids. Do I have
proof of additional bids?
That all right, Bob?
Yes, so that the board may make adjustments, but during the public hearing if necessary.
All right, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, do we need, no, I think we'll have to approve the expenditures, but do we need to have additional bids on the vehicles and on the compressor? And
Not necessarily everything, but the stuff that hasn't been shopped needs to be shopped.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with that either, and I think that's probably been done, but I do think it's part of the board's responsibility to see that information.
For instance, the flooring seems way out of line, and there's other things that we don't have multiple bids on.
Mr. Chairman, Yvonne has a question.
Yes.
I have some comments. So when we started looking at these numbers that are in this board packet, they're very high level, didn't include forecasting and what was unpaid but routed. So I would just really want to go over the numbers with you, Jim, and make sure that they're very accurate. Now the Parks and Rec number, I'm not sure where that came from, but we don't have that amount of money in excess money to spend, the 80,000.
So,
I don't think that number came from.
And we'll dwindle that list down to necessities.
The second point I just want to bring up, I would feel more comfortable if we are making sure that we are clearing our debt ratios in water and sewer enterprises for our bond and loan, because we absolutely have to get those.
Mr. Chairman, I would include the finance director's concerns into my motion.
And I'll agree with that amendment.
And
Okay.
lastly,
So the amended.
Hold on, she got one more thing, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Terry. Just lastly, I just want you to make sure, and the auditor wanted me to disclose this, our bond entries that go into our financial statements, we've been waiting on those from the auditor since February. So we just got them, and I want to make sure that we get them in the next financials so that all of this is accurate. Just those were the points I wanted to make.
Mr. Chairman, my amendment stands.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I suggest that Mr. Cook consider withdrawing that motion until we get more information for the next meeting.
I'd like to.
I think, may I speak?
You may.
I think we need to get the motion out and on the floor so that they can move forward on the known positions and bring the revised version, because all we're doing is getting it to the point that we can have the public hearing. At the public hearing, we can make the revisions. We need a public hearing on this.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to Mr. Elliott?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Greg, you're all right with the...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm fine.
Just a minute, Harry.
Okay, I didn't know if I... Okay.
All right, Harry, go ahead. Now I can hear you.
Well, I think because what we need to do is, this is tentative because the next meeting we'll have to pass the resolutions for those monies to go into the budget for next year. I mean, to be spent out of next year. This year's money has to be spent out of next year's time frame.
This year's.
This year's budget.
This year's budget has to be spent, but we have to make the resolution next board meeting to make it official.
Exactly, to get it done this year.
The public hearing next board meeting.
Yes,
This will be the resolution. That'll be the public hearing.
In other
That's
words,
right.
you don't want to work on Christmas.
Any other
I won't be
discussion?
here on Christmas.
Just
Any other discussion?
bring up a point. I know there's some things that Jim wants prioritized and wants here by the end of the year if possible. But if we run into some issues on timing, we can have the board agree on a resolution to commit funds from this year to next year. We can still use these funds if we have them next year.
Yeah, that's the purpose of us doing this.
Moving
so
tonight.
Comes out of this year, definitely. All right, any other discussion? So as I have the motion now to approve the expenditures as listed in Water Department, Sewer Department, Parks and Rec, and Golf Course expenditures, subject to number one, bids on all of the multiple bids on all of the items, and number two, examination that they fit into the bond ratio parameters. Is that correct?
And other financial corners by the finance department.
Okay. And other
financial concerns. I should change that verbiage to financial concerns of the finance department.
Correct. Is that how everybody's understood what we're voting on?
Yeah.
Okay, this one I do want to do by voice vote. We're spending a lot of money here. Neil?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, that takes us to Resolution 18-2020, Road Maintenance Agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the road maintenance agreement 18-2020. I would ask that somebody present read the title of that for me.
You got that one in front of you.
I got it. It says resolution accepting and confirming roads that will be maintained by Colorado City Metropolitan District.
And I'll
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Did you second her?
Yes, I did.
We moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Call the question.
All right. Harry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Bob?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to old business. Bob, why don't you go ahead with loss prevention infrastructure?
Before we get to the loss prevention infrastructure, one thing that doesn't seem to be on here is we've already talked about is the other resolution for the stop work order. So I would like to first make a motion to accept the stop work order with the change that we discussed during the study session.
Well, that has to go through the public hearing anyway. It was just,
I understand, but we need a resolution to move it forward to the public hearing.
no, you'll vote on that after the public hearing.
Yeah.
It's already,
We need to make sure we get the change in for the public hearing
Oh,
is
yeah.
what I'm
Oh, the change.
yes, the changes have been made.
So I would ask that we vote on that change.
So I'll second his motion.
All right. Any discussion?
Call the question.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed program beginning immediately for water loss and infrastructure replacement.
Okay, I'm going to have to see that program again.
I understand.
I think, does that need to be a resolution to, rather than just a motion?
It can be either, but I would prefer a resolution be brought back, but we need to start the process.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to accept the proposal for water loss and infrastructure replacement as proposed by Bob and Neil, using the guidelines from Bob and Neil. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I'm going to yield to Neil on that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, should we amend that motion to create a resolution to begin that process using that plan? We need to.
That's acceptable to me.
Okay, since this is discussion right now, can I suggest, I think I was for it all, but I would like to see it as an actual agenda item, not something we decide at 7:42 to talk about again and vote on tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my motion and make a request that this be set as a resolution on the next board meeting.
I'm perfectly okay with that. How about the rest of the board?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, let's do that. I don't think we need to do a vote on that. We'll just direct Jim, if you would make sure that's on the agenda for next meeting.
yes.
Any other old business?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did we miss the approval for the water plant shed?
Yeah, it was in part of the, it was part of the water expenditures.
Okay. Okay.
Did your question get answered, Neil?
Yes, it's answered.
Okay. Any new business? Okay, let's move into CCACC.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Because we have a list of stuff already on here, I would like to address the one that's not on here so that we can get that out of the way.
All right.
I yield to the manager.
Yes, we have a shed that is being built next to our water plant. It is going to be a 40-foot connex on a cement slab. I've talked to the county on it, as long as it was on a cement slab and in a permanent position, and it blends in with our plant. We have our setback from the building enough on that. Everything is all ready to go. I just need board approval to accept our build.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this shed.
All right, I have a motion to approve the shed at 5600 Corona Verde Boulevard. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak on this.
You may, sir.
I brought this to Jim's attention that there is an old resolution on the books. I don't know exactly when. I remember reading the resolution books of old, and I'm going to say approximately 83 to 88. The board at that time felt that they were going to, after the collapse of the developer, they were taking over covenant control, and they asked a court in Texas to set them as the directors there, or the term slips my mind for the moment, but anyhow, they felt that when they made their motion, they put in that to keep peace in the valley and to show that they care as much as residents, that they would have all Metro property and any property sold by the Metro be under covenant approval, the same as any other property would. And following in their footsteps, it just shows that if we're going to approve an individual property owner's home, we should, our shed, we should also approve our shed. And that's why I'm asking to add this on. When it came to the dollar amount at the bottom, I asked him to write in courtesy of the board.
Okay.
I yield.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have 4 other addresses for builds. Jim, go ahead.
Okay, you have, let me get them here. You have one on 4919 Manitou. It's an R2. It's 1,040 square foot. There's plans, setbacks, color texture is the same as the last 4 that he's built. It's brown wooden.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to have to. I did not realize that the individual that owned these. I cannot participate in this. I'm going to have to recuse myself.
All right, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, he's got one at 4719. He's got one at 4970 Cherry Creek. It's the same thing. It's an R2. 1,040 foot. Covenants is 720 on them. All the information, plot plan, everything is there. We have 5358 Trappers Trail Drive. They are adding a deck of 576 square foot. It is in a R2. The plot line plan is there. All the setbacks, everything are within reason. I have not been out to measure it, but I will when I go out and see them tomorrow. Everything else, it's a covered deck. All the paperwork is there, plans, drawings. The last one is 4419 West Jefferson Boulevard. They are looking at building a garage and fence. We did have some concerns because they said they were going to use cattle panels. I said it isn't just going to be something that's thrown up. She says no, they have a company, I'm trying to think of the name of the company out of Pueblo. It's built by design or something. I said I need to see what kind of products they're going to use before we can okay it, but within our guidelines, everything is okay. She's supposed to be sending me some more pictures on the fencing. She did have all the garage pictures are included as to height, width, and dimensions on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak a moment.
Okay.
I'd like to break these up by property owner. I don't want to exclude a board member just because one of them is attached to him or two. And plus, the two that he is excusing himself on seems to be a repeat customer. And the same issue, it seems, on every one of his documents, there's never a property owner signature date on the application. Now, last time, the first time we throwed it back. The second time we said, oh, just go ahead and sign it. How are we going to handle this going forward if the man's going to refuse to sign and date these applications?
Bob, he did come in. I told him last Thursday when we reviewed him that he didn't have a signature. He said he would send me, and he has sent me the ones. I just didn't put them within your book because I figured I ain't going to recopy them. It was there. He does have signed copies. It was brought to his attention.
Okay. Did the zoning match covenant and county?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the first two. I believe they're both the same gentleman, as approved.
I have a motion to accept 4719 Manitou and 4970 Cherry Creek. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Again, let the record show Greg's recusing himself on these two properties. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve 5358 Trappers Trail Drive with the deck.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to not approve 4419 West Jefferson Boulevard until we have more information about what that fence.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I would like to hear more of that because I didn't catch all of it the first time around. Did you say
Jim, would you
cattle
allow
panels?
me to-
Yeah, they were saying cattle panels for the fencing on it.
Or were they talking about framed cattle panels or just posts put up? 'Cause
I'm
I
not
can't see
sure.
posts.
I'm not sure on that, Bob. That's why I would like to see some design on
I
it
agree.
before going forward. The garage, I don't know whether you want to approve the garage separately. They can start the garage and,
Is it a separate document?
no, it isn't. That's the thing.
Okay, then I'll stick with our approval, our disapproval at this
Okay.
point.
I take it that the cattle panels are the ones you see along the road, those green ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at cattle panels, you know, those ones that come in sections.
And that was some of the concern with the committee on it, or the advisory committee. I told her
Actually,
I wanted some more clarification on it, and she says, well, this company, I said, well, I need some pictures. So we'll
Mr.
get some
Chairman?
pictures.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak on that. Sometimes those are referred to as corral panels, not cattle panels. Cattle panels are generally 1/4-inch welded wire on a 4x6 pattern, 42 inches high, or 54 inches on cattle panels.
Yeah. The motion on motion on the floor is to not approve it because of a lack of information.
I call the question.
Okay, the question has been called. All in favor of turning down this request till we have additional information signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any additional information as far as actions, Jim?
Actions for, let me look at my, it's been a long day. Okay, actions. The committee reviewed 8 more complaints that were on the list. There is 8 of them within your packet. As to what, I haven't had the time to sit down and get their addresses. When I did this on Friday and Saturday, the Pueblo assessor's office was down. So I have to go back in and fill the addresses. If you look at your sheet, we're down through what we have, but there is also 2 of them that have came in since then. So we're catching up on our list, and I know there's a few that weren't on the list that I'm going back and trying to find and locate that are coming back up anyway. Like you said, there was one on Santa Fe with the chickens. We'll send out a letter to them. That was something that was in the past that I remember getting a complaint on and going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I move to send a courtesy letter on all of these.
Been moved that we send 8 courtesy letters
with approved financing.
With approved financing. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to speak on this.
Go ahead.
I'm moving to do the courtesy letters instead of Title 17 because it's our obligation first to notify these. And as we spoke about the trash cans and stuff, our objection, our objectivity to begin with was to notify people and work with them if we can. If we can't, then we move to the next stage. If the next stage is where we can consider Title 17, Title 8, Title 9, whatever we need in addition to. But at the first general recognition, it needs to be just a courtesy letter. Whether it be, it doesn't matter what part of town, it's just a courtesy letter to begin with to start the process.
Understood. That's what the motion is about exactly.
Yes,
Any other
just the courtesy letters. But the discussion I wanted to have is when we look at these, for instance, I looked at the spreadsheet, and almost all of these are well off the road. Some of these have been there for 10 or 15 years. And we have to start somewhere, so that's the courtesy letter. The problem that I've got, and this doesn't go just to this, so I think I'll hold my problem till we vote on this.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah.
We have a motion. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. There was somebody that had a question, and I'll address it when you get done.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to send out courtesy letters to each of these 8 addresses. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any in opposition? Motion carries. Go ahead, Jim. What?
I had a question. It was from Vicki. She sent in a complaint in July about farm animals and stuff. It has been addressed. It was sent in, I think, one of our first rounds to Title 7 is it for health department?
At least.
8, I'm sorry. And I have a message into him now. And with COVID and stuff this last week with the health department, it would be like pulling teeth. So they're trying, with all the changes they had, again.
Everything in the company shut down.
Okay, yeah, please continue
So we are
that.
working on it.
Okay, anything else as far as CCACC?
I have a correspondence from Mr. Byrd, who was the chairman. It says here, dear Mr.
Mr. Chairman, that's correspondence, not CCACC.
Okay.
And I would like to continue with CCACC before we get to correspondence.
Okay, I didn't know whether there was any more.
Okay, Jim. Okay, Bob, what do you have?
Okay, after review of this spreadsheet, there's many things that were in the pipeline that didn't get put on this. I think I showed you a few places in Applewood and stuff like that that never made the first list or this list or whatever. And the way that we're going about some of this, and I had a long discussion with Director Elliott today on some of this and how we need to look at it. And like we both said, it needs to be brought to the board. Something we need to discuss is when we're looking at a property, and I say we because we are the board. The review committee does go out and look, but they do it on our behalf. So I'm going to pick on my sister because she's on the list. And it's an easy one to make the point with. If you look at the list, you'll see 2836 Applewood Court, Teresa Cook. Yes, I control the property. I have POA on the property, such like that. And there was a dumpster there. The dumpster was removed, but the point that I'm going to try to make is when somebody went and looked at that dumpster, they ignored the two neighbors directly, because there's a neighbor on the west side of the property that has a dumpster and a neighbor directly in front of the property that has a dumpster. And if you have to turn around, that's a cul-de-sac, and almost everybody makes the loop to turn their vehicle around because of the narrow street. There's one in the cul-de-sac. So when you go in, you can't ignore the other ones just because they're not on the list. That's just picking and choosing, and we can't do that. We've been warned against that. That's selective enforcement. We know that if that dumpster's wrong, then the one right beside it is wrong as well, and we're obligated to write everybody down that we're passing to get to that one. No, we don't have to go down all the other streets and look, but if you pass it, you must write it down. And if you look, there's only one Applewood Court on the list. So how did it get missed? Now, that's a different question for a different day. But if you look also, on the latest list, it says reviewed. So if it's reviewed, that means we went there twice and missed the other three. So we have to have some way or some understanding of how to move forward when somebody goes out and looks, whether it be me or the chair or the manager, whoever goes out and looks, if there's the same problem immediately right there, you can't then pick one, because our bylaws say we won't treat one individual different than the other. And we can't close our eyes and get there. So how are we going to move forward is a question I'm going to pose to the board, not necessarily for a discussion right now, but to consider as we move forward. Specifically, we can talk about it next meeting or whatever. But we need to look at things like this and say, what's right, what's wrong? Another thing that we discussed and I brought up earlier is Cindy, only a courtesy letter at first. That's what it was designed for, a courtesy. We're just letting everybody know, hey, there's a problem here. And as the people that spoke tonight, we're willing to work with the people within the bounds that we can. And this board needs to, each one of us, I think, try to figure out where we're at on it and narrow down how we want to move forward. That's my only concerns there. I'm not saying change anything at this point. I'm just saying let's back up, go backwards, but to look as we go forward how it affects the neighbors and courtesy to the entire community of how we work with everybody. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I would like to...
May I speak to that?
I
think they sent out the courtesy letters. It just told them what their violation was. It didn't give them anything. Just told them, here's what you're in violation of. And these people, I think, that came in tonight responded to that the same way because it wasn't signed where you're going to be fined or this or this. It's just a courtesy letter. Here's your violation. And I think,
May I respond?
And I think what happens.
Finish first.
And I think what happens is, the people did respond with the courtesy letter, and what they have in the cover letter, like these complaint letters, that doesn't tell you what the violation was. It just says in a rough draft, here's what they're wrong, and then when the office sends out the letters, now correct me if I'm wrong, but when the office sends out the letters, they put on there explicitly what their violation was for their property. Is that correct?
Yes, as the covenant.
Yeah, as per the covenant. So we are informing them, here's your violation of your thing. It doesn't say anything. And you have, 15 days to respond to us, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Those people came in. Those people came in tonight with a problem, and I think we're working on workable solutions for those problems. So all I was just letting them know, and I think it's going to work. And I think, and I agree with Bob. I don't know, but I don't know when you're going out to look at a particular place. Maybe we should give the pro committee more parameters when you walk by something and you have 3 or 4 there in the same cul-de-sac. Then maybe we need to look at that, but I don't know. But I know that if we're not doing that, then we're picking and choosing.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Greg, do you have some feelings? I want to hear everybody's thoughts. I know we're not going to make any decision on this tonight, but I do want to hear some other thoughts.
Well, I agree with Bob that if the only thing that I don't agree with Bob is he's assuming that it was done through malice, which I would not want to assume that because they may just not have been paying attention. Because having 8 kids like myself, I can tell you right now, people don't pay attention. So they may have been so focused on just that one thing to verify it that they may have overlooked those others. However, I do wholeheartedly agree that if they are going to check on a violation and they notice another violation, whether it's the same property or the property next to them or the property across the street, that it should be reported. Otherwise, like Mr. Cook is saying, it is picking and choosing.
Mr. Elliott.
I concur. I think that we have to, in order to be consistent and not to be subjective, we have to notice the dumpster that's right square in front of us as well as the one that we're going to because of a complaint. So I think we're setting ourselves up for lawsuits and for all kinds of non-compliance if we don't also notice the infraction that you drive by.
Okay, here's my thoughts, and they're totally the opposite. I think we're setting ourselves up for selective enforcement if we notice those things. Because how many different streets is it possible to take to get to those dumpsters? So why did we pick the street that we picked? Why did we come from the north instead of the south, or the east instead of the west. I think that selective, if we're going to, anything we notice as the five of us drive around Colorado City, I think then we're selectively enforcing. Unless we want to plan and drive up every street, no matter how remote, drive through every cul-de-sac, no matter how remote, take every possible way to an address, no matter how far out of the way. I think that's selective enforcement. I think we are depending on the community to alert us to things that are damaging to the community, and that we will be selectively enforcing if we expand beyond that. That's my thought.
You know, because the person who gives the complaint, we don't know who it is. So Bob's sister could write a complaint up about all those filters around her property, and we'd never know who gave the complaint. So once they're in their office, then we have to act on them. So we're not stopping anybody from complaining. It's just who wants to fill out the paperwork or make contact, say this address is in violation. Then we go from there. I mean, it's almost a no-win situation there, because we have to be able to see to drive.
Mr. Chairman, in rebuttal to your different streets to get to an address, we're going to be damned either way we make that decision. So we have to somehow come up with a what is reasonable. So if I were to drive to your address, I would probably take what I consider the most reasonable direction, and I would expect other people to understand that's what I did. If I saw infractions along the way, or if I saw infractions that was your neighbor, I think I would be selectively enforcing against you if I didn't also enforce against your neighbor.
Understood.
However, if I may, Mr. Hochstetler made a good point. We are not stopping anybody from filing a complaint. So if we send out a courtesy letter to, let's say, Mr. Cook's sister, and then she says, well, what about the neighbors? Well, then
that is a complaint.
That is a complaint right there. As soon as she says, what about the neighbors? There's our complaint, and now we can pursue that. Because I'm kind of on the fence about the way we do this, but I kind of would like to see complaints come in on everything. That way we're not doing selective enforcement. We're not going through and finding them ourselves, because I really don't want the community turning into a bunch of people driving around trying to find anything and everything wrong with where we live. But if it's a complaint and it's a legitimate complaint, then we enforce it.
Well, actually, Greg, the way we're set up, they don't even have to be a legitimate complaint. I mean, if it's a complaint, we treat it as legitimate.
Yes, it's a complaint, but we may not enforce it because it may not be a legitimate complaint.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Okay. Something to ponder for the future.
Bob had a question there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Bob. I was talking.
No, that's fine. This offline stuff's a little hard to do sometimes. I would like to address Harry's concern on my action towards courtesy letters, and I kind of want to put him at ease. I'm not making any complaints or anything about the courtesy letter, or trying to focus only on the courtesy letter. I guess what I was trying to explain is the first time around, what we did do in the first few complaints, now those aren't even on our list. Some of those were turned in to both Covenant and Title 17 at courtesy point, when we shouldn't have And I approve that. And that's why I'm saying I'm backing up and taking a look as well at how do I treat everybody properly, or not just properly, but courteously, and say, okay, we're giving you a warning, telling you this is the thing, without then throwing them under the bus with Pueblo County that may come out and take it so much further than what we had intended. Now, that's neither right or wrong there. It's just the point of the first notification only being courtesy. Because if, like the ones that came in tonight, we say, okay, we'll work with you. But the other ones that didn't come in said, we're going to blow them off. And then we get to the point of having to send our next letter, which includes fees or notification of, hey, you didn't take us seriously at courtesy. Now we're stepping it up to, we're going to get a lawyer involved in courts if you don't listen to us, and there's fees now attached. At that point is when we should also throw them under the bus at Title 17 or Title 9 or whatever. Is what the point I was trying to make.
Understood. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this, or?
So, yes, I thinking about what both you and Greg said, as far as not becoming a police state and the selective enforcement you're talking about. When Greg brought up that if somebody that we sent a courtesy letter to complained about, well, why aren't you going after my neighbor? That's a good point. I see that in our letter it does say it has been brought to our attention by one or more of the residents. Maybe that gives us the option to wait for the neighbor to complain. I don't know. That's a good thought.
At that point, they've brought it to our attention. Just like the letter says.
May I?
Yes. And then
what if they say, I'm not complying until you enforce it upon my neighbors?
Yeah, which is a complaint.
Which is a complaint.
Exactly.
What if they don't tell you that and you send them the legal letter?
Yeah, that is my concern.
Now you've got lawyers and everybody involved.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ellis would like to speak.
All right.
I heard you guys are saying, but if I get the letter and I've got my neighbors all have the same infraction, I'm not going to say anything but send you the letter that's up on several websites where you are selectively choosing me to enforce the covenants while allowing others. So that's the trick bag you're in.
Yep.
Thank you. So what do you want to do with this? We're not going to make a decision tonight.
Right.
I don't want to sit here another 20 minutes talking.
I kind of want to think about it for a week or two.
Okay. Jim, why don't we make that part of the study session for the next meeting?
Okay.
How to our involvement. Yes, sir.
I agree that this needs to come to the next meeting, specifically a study session, but I would say if it's still available to you to review what the lady said on her talk that everybody wanted me to watch. And she suggested that you actually do a drive around once a month.
Yes.
Now, I don't really want to do that, but I do think it's much more than you can't ignore the one that you're walking past to get to them.
Right. No. Yes, she did say that. I remember. So yes, and I think it's still reviewable. I think you can still pull that up through
And she did say work with everybody.
I'm sorry?
And she did say work with everybody.
Yes, I agree with that, definitely. Like we did tonight. I thought
Absolutely.
that was handled very well. All right, Jim, you had a correspondence.
Okay, correspondence addressed to Mr. Eckert. What began as a volunteer advisory position with the task of receiving and investigating complaints from citizens and then recommending solutions to resolve these issues has deteriorated into making sure complaints received at the front desk are transported to the Metro boardroom for board meeting, during which the complaints may be analyzed and processed. No suggestions or recommendations are required, and any input into the process is significantly not requested.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
This is a communication.
No, I want to hear the correspondence.
I understand that, but I have a point of order about what you're doing.
What?
The rules. I would ask that he reread the first line.
Dear Mr. Ecker.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, under the rules, this is not correspondence to the board, it's correspondence to the manager.
Okay, well,
right.
if you want,
you don't have to read it all. We've got a copy of it.
Okay, what it is that Mr. Byrd has therefore resigning from participation in the CCAAC committee. Respectfully submitted, Larry Byrd.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that as correspondence. I think what Mr. Berg was a very big asset to CCAC. Very knowledgeable. And I think a couple of meetings ago, it was a public meeting, and I think he and the two other members on that committee were bullied and talked to and lectured to. And I think, and I don't blame him, and I didn't interrupt soon enough, but I think one of our board members was out of line addressing that situation, and we lost a good man because of it. And I think he's still going to be involved in the background with this, but I think that we need to, tonight's meeting I thought was a darn good meeting. I really think it was. But we need to quit, as individuals, attacking people and bullying them and preaching to them as if we're not equal to other people and that we have any ideas of our own. I think we need to work together, and I think we started tonight a little bit on this covenant thing, which I think is good. But it cost us a good man because no one spoke up at the meeting to address the issue, and he was personally attacked. And that's all I have to say, and I'm done.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, now that you've opened it up to discussion, let me state that this gentleman also cost us $7,000 over a trash can.
Okay, thank you. I also agree that we lost somebody that was very, very critical to making all this work. Any other items we need to take care of? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I have one request, I think. On our spreadsheet for the CCAAC of complaints, is there a way that we can see the rest or a status of what the complaint code is? What is a complaint code, and how these go, or if they go to the county, what the status is to the county?
We can add that in.
Okay, that's my request.
It's figuring it.
All right, thank you.
All right.
I call for adjournment.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We are adjourned.
So the